how can a book really be this good? Nibbling my way through 1,300 pages. Why am I giggling? Why am I kicking my feet? Why do I want to scream? Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. We are going to be reading the highest rated book on Goodreads. This book in question does have a 4.76 rating on Goodreads. There are 767 ratings on the day that I'm starting this video. I'm sure when I'm done reading this book, there will be more ratings up because these books are so dang popular. But yeah, out of all the books on Goodreads that, let's say, have more than 100,000 ratings, like are somewhat popular, this book actually officially holds the title of highest rated. So we're gonna read it together and we're gonna see if this book is really worth all of that hype, because how can a book have that high of a rating? The highest rated book I've ever read is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas, which has a 4.71, I'm pretty sure, which is still really high, but that is the final book in an 8-book series. So by the time we get to that book, we've had a lot of time to get to that point. Like we've cooked for so long. And so in books like that are conclusions of series, I feel like they just tend to be rated higher because if you're still reading the series to that point, obviously you're attached and obviously, you know, you're gonna pick it up because you probably will enjoy the book. The book we're reading today though, however, is the second book to a series. So we definitely have not had as much time with the characters and world that we're going to be reading about in today's video, but I have really, really high expectations, okay? And that book is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. You guys already saw this coming. You guys know I have picked up my mission to read the Cosmere again. I read Mistborn Phase 1, the first trilogy, last year, and I was honestly very mixed on it. I also read Tress of the Emerald Sea last year, also was kind of iffy on it, but then I read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and I honestly think that is where I started to become more convinced on Brandon Sanderson and his writing, because I loved that little book. I loved it so much. I then went on to pick up The Way of Kings, and then I picked up Oathbringer, and now we are officially on to Words of Radiance. So we're just gonna read this together. We're gonna see if this book really does deserve that really, really high rating. Like, how can a book really be this good? And I'm gonna take you guys along with me on the ride. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the Stormlight Archive, that is the series that this book sits into. It's a high fantasy series. We are set in a really war-torn world, and we follow 3 main characters as they navigate through this war-torn land in their different situations. So our main hero in the first book was Kaladin. He had lost his little brother in the war, so he was really struggling with grief. He became a squad leader in that war, but then in a series of events fell into slavery. He actually was sold as a slave, and so that was the path that Kaladin had to navigate. We followed Shallan, the daughter of a nobleman, I would say, but a nobleman who was falling from grace. But she was traveling to another region to find this princess that she wanted to be a ward under, to study under. But she had some sneaky ulterior motives with that. And then our third POV was Dalinar, the uncle of the king, and very high up in, you know, the rankings himself. But he was getting these visions during storms. Everyone thought he was losing his mind, and he was just struggling to maintain respect, maintain command, because everyone just thought he was losing his mind. So those were our 3 main characters in the first book, and now we're gonna venture into the second. I did actually start this last night, I'm sorry, but like this book is 1,300 pages long, so like I just nibbled at it. I literally read this much. Literally nothing. I read the prologue and like 1 page of the first chapter, but I did really love the prologue. It was really good. In the prologue, we followed a character who I don't think we got her POV in the first book, but she was definitely a significant character. And it was a really interesting prologue because it actually matched the prologue of The Way of Kings, the first book. We went back to that same moment, but now we are seeing it through another character's POV. So I thought that was just a really good way to get back into this world. Like, it felt really reminiscent to the opening of The Way of Kings because we were following the same event that happened, but now we see it through someone else's eyes, now that we know more about the certain character. I thought that was really well done. And now that I'm into part 1, I do see that part 1 will feature Shallan, Dalinar, and Kaladin. So we're getting our 3 main characters back with this one. I don't know, so far I'm liking it. I've read 20 pages so far. It's good so far. But let's just continue reading and I'll update you along the way. was unexpected. I'm at around the 130 page mark, and so far, this book is very good. Okay, so far it is starting out very strong. I'm obviously not getting like, I don't know, 6-star feelings or perfection feelings yet because we are just this far into the book. We're not very far into it at all, and obviously a book like this is gonna take its time to get to that point where you're like, oh my goodness, this is the best book I have ever read. We're not quite at that point yet, but so far it is starting out strong. I also just read something very, very surprising. I think if you listened to our podcast episode with Freya, if you listened to the episode where we did our Way of Kings deep dive episode, we talked a little bit about how we were surprised at how the Way of Kings was a little bit gentle, if you can call it that, with the characters in terms of like characters surviving through the book. Like, we're used to Brandon Sanderson being a little bit more ruthless with eliminating characters. That is definitely not true with Words of Radiance. And that's all I will say. But yeah, something very unexpected just happened. I don't know where this one character is gonna go from here now. Because that happened so early in this story. But in terms of the writing, I will say, okay, I know one of my biggest critiques for Brandon Sanderson's writing in general is that he writes like a little bit of a plain chip. Yes, I'm gonna bring the plain chip back, but so far, from what I have observed, his writing is less plain chip-like in this book. He's got a little more seasoning. There's something more going on here. I don't know if I'm just getting used to his plain writing, because I still do notice it when I see it in his books, but I'm really, really liking the writing in this. There definitely seems to be a little bit more flavor in here. It's still very straightforward writing where it's not going to get in the way of this like gigantic story that he's trying to tell you, but it's just like a little bit more seasoned, which I'm enjoying. I also think everything feels a lot more cohesive in this one. Like, when we stepped into the Way of Kings, it was a little bit confusing to get into, obviously because it's a completely new fantasy world, but also because the Way of Kings had 3 prologues to begin, and you were flipping through so many POVs and timelines. Like, there were such big drastic time jumps at the beginning of Way of Kings that it was a little bit disorienting to get into. And also the little blurbs, the epigraphs at the beginning of each chapter in the Way of Kings seemingly felt a little bit more random. They kind of felt like they set the mood more than, I don't know, being hints to leading up to something cohesive. I mean, I'm sure if you put them all together, you would get, in the end, a cohesive message from them, but I think the epigraphs in Words of Radiance so far definitely feel a lot more cohesive. They are more consistent, and they also really match the chapters that we're reading into very well. So far, so good. I'm also seeing hints of more of our characters now colliding with their paths, so I'm excited for that to happen, for all of them to, like, meet each other and interact with each other a little bit more, but we've got a lot more to read, so let's just continue. Too much time to read during the day today because I have been so busy. There is so much work to do these days. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I'm just being very ambitious with like creating content, but I've been so busy lately. But I did manage to read until I think I'm at around page 180 now. I did just finish part 1 of the book, so I'm at the interlude section. If you're not familiar with the Stormlight Archive, all the books are split into parts. I think they all have 5 parts. The Way of Kings had 5 parts, where in each part, that's where the main story takes place, and each part follows 3 different character POVs, and then in between all the parts we have these interlude sections, which generally follow 3 different POVs. So we are at the first interlude now, and I just want to say, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I get so frustrated and annoyed when we get into the interlude sections. I know they're important. I know that we are seeing these for a reason, and obviously they are going to count towards something, but I just feel like I just want to see the story progress. Like the current timeline we are watching, I feel like I get so attached to these current day timelines that I just want to see them like move forward, and then when we go back to these interludes, it's like I did like Seth in the Way of Kings interlude chapters, but I don't know, we have some like names that I've never seen before in this first interlude section, and I'm just like, I don't want to meet new people. I want to follow the people I already know. All that being said, this book is wonderful so far. Shallan's storyline actually right now is kind of giving me Project Hail Mary vibes. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm just gonna throw that comment out there. And if you've read both of the books, you will know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to spoil on either side. But yeah, there are definitely some similar elements with her story and the Project Hail Mary story right now. And I'm really, really liking that feeling. As I was finishing up this last Kaladin part in part 1, I was just thinking about how much I enjoy the little happy moments in these books. When you take a book like this that looks like this and is this long, and you know the premise has to do with this big fantasy war, you just think that it's gonna be really serious and just kind of negative, but like in a good way, like in an intense way. What I love about these books is that there are so many moments where we're just having fun, like we're just having a good time, we're just hanging out with our friends. There's always some good friendly banter and friendly bonding that happens with our character arcs, and it's just nice. It's just cozy. And it's like you'll go from these really intense moments to these really light-hearted moments. And I think that's what makes these Stormlight books so good, because if you're gonna read a book this long, you can't just have it all be like heavy. I just like the fun little cute moments, and we are getting quite a bit of that. Anyways, air conditioning just came on. You guys know that is a sign that my house is trying to tell me to stop talking, so I'm gonna have some dinner and I'm gonna keep reading through this evening and we'll see how far we get. I'm at page 350, slowly but surely making our way through. It's always funny when you get to this point, like I guess like 350, close to 400 pages, when at that point you think and you're like, oh, in a regular sized book, I would be getting like close to the end of this book, but we are just still making our way through the first half. But that also got me thinking, like, why do these books not feel slow? I genuinely don't understand why, because I last month actually read Warbreaker, which my copy of Warbreaker is close to 700 pages. It's just under 700. And while I was reading that one, I did enjoy the story, but I did feel that one moved very, very slow. And I know, like, I've read enough fantasy, so I know that so many great fantasy books start off super, super slow, build up throughout the entire book, and then just crash and burn at the end, and that's where the exciting moments are. So I get it, and I know Brandon Sanderson is also very well known for that. Like, the term Sanderlanche exists for a reason, but I did find myself feeling quite bored with parts of Warbreaker and just very confused at the pacing of that book. It could have been like I just wasn't feeling invested in every single character POV in that one. There were a few characters that I was really interested in, and then a few characters that I just felt very little connection to. And maybe in the Stormlight Archive, he's just created more interesting characters overall. And even though now we're starting to get POV chapters for characters that like we don't like, I don't like, it's still interesting reading their chapters. And I know I was just, in my last clip when we were catching up, I was saying how I was frustrated at seeing that we were finished part 1 and going into an interlude. Those interludes were so cool. They were so cool. And now I'm so interested in those interlude characters. We're learning so much more about the world and the magic. Like in The Way of Kings, we really only truly scratched the surface. Like we only really learned about one flavor, I was calling it, but one order. Now I know the actual term. We only really saw one order of the main magic, and now we're starting to learn more about the other ones, and it's so interesting. And I think just like as we're learning them in a way where we're also getting character development at the same time through the way they're learning their magic and getting more adept at it. But okay, we have 1,000 pages left to read, so I don't know, we'll continue. Okay, I forgot this little fact that was in The Way of Kings and in this world, but why are women not allowed to eat spicy food in this world? For some reason, that really annoys me. As a lover of spicy food, give the girl some spicy food. past the 600 page mark. We are at page 612. So we're actually just under the halfway point of this book, which sounds insane. I will never get used to the lengths of these books because how am I 612 pages in and I'm not even halfway yet? This book just continues to get better and better and better. And tell me why. Okay, tell me why. We are starting to get the tiniest little crumbs of a romance subplot in this book. And like literally nothing has happened. And when I say nothing has happened, nothing has happened. But why am I already like feeling so giggly about it? Why am I giggling? Why am I kicking my feet? Why do I want to scream into the void about this tiny little hint of a maybe romance subplot, little tiny crumb? I love it so much. I love it so much. If there's one thing about me, if you give me the tiniest little hint of a, like even a non-existent romance, I feel like the one in this will become an actual thing, but like give me something that's like not even there. Like it never happened. And I will devour those tiny crumbs. I will love it so much. I will love it even more than if you like punched a romance main plot into my face. Like if you just like put a romance in front of me, like all the way, I will be like, I will find things to critique about it. There's a high chance I will not love it. But yeah, if you just like give me the little hints of it, I will happily pick up those little crumbs and hints. And I'm so relieved because the little tiny bit of a romance subplot we had in The Way of Kings was not it for me. It was not it. That was one instance of a romance crumb subplot that did not work for me because it just made me feel really uncomfortable for many reasons. But the one in Words of Radiance, the one in this book, I am loving so much. Anyways, now that we've screamed about the romance that has not even happened, other thoughts so far while reading. I am just loving the multi-POV of it all. It's now that we're getting further into the series and more of our characters are converging and, you know, like plot lines are all intertwining a little bit more. I feel like we are just getting such a better full picture of every single character because mostly in The Way of Kings, we only really saw our characters through their own POVs. And so we get, you know, a really one-dimensional view of them, like just from their own POV essentially. But now we'll see like that one character through someone else's POV and they'll seem so different to someone else. You just get so much more dimension. And I know that's not like groundbreaking. I know that's not like anything new. It's just something that multi-POV does. And that's why fantasies and multi-POV work so well together. I'm just noticing that a lot in this as we're progressing through the story. I also am just really appreciating how our character arcs are so realistic in terms of their emotional development, but also in their magical development. There are so many fantasy books and series out there where our protagonist will like come into their magical powers and just immediately do a full 180 in their character. Like their character will just immediately switch to a full other persona now that they've come into their magical power. And then also they will just somehow immediately master their magical power as well. There are a lot of fantasy books that really rush this part of the fantasy, and what I'm really appreciating about Words of Radiance is that we are not rushing into that. Same thing with Way of Kings, like just the series in general, and I think Brandon Sanderson in general, is we get a really realistic picture of our characters struggling to learn their magic. And that, you know, I guess goes along very well with the fact that these books are so long. Maybe that is why these books are so long, is because we really do need that realistic look of what it's like to come into your powers but really not know what to do with them. It is nighttime, obviously, as you can see. I'm gonna keep reading. I'm gonna keep nibbling my way through this book. I genuinely feel like a little mouse while I'm reading these thick books because I don't know, I devour books quite quickly. You know that about me, but with these books, I genuinely feel like I'm just a little mouse and I'm just like nibbling my way through 1,300 pages. But yeah, okay, I will continue reading. Genuinely, last night, I read the best fight scene I have ever read in my entire life. Genuinely, I can't think of like another fight scene chapter moment in another book that affected me the way I was affected last night. I felt all of the thrills, the way this fight unfolded and how everything happened, the order of how everything happened, the pacing of it all, the way the action was described. I was like so in it. It was so good. For reference, by the way, I didn't even tell you where in the book I am, but I feel like if you've read this book, you probably know what the scene is that I'm talking about, because like hopefully you loved it as much as I did. I'm on page 824 now, but this particular fight scene was at the end of part 3. So good. I was so nervous. I was like on the edge of my seat, gripping on for dear life. Yeah, that was really thrilling. And I love the way the fight ended, or like the second half of the fight is like one of my favorite fight scene tropes. I don't want to say what the trope is, just in case you haven't read this book. Needless to say, I am getting the hype about this book now at this point. I know as I was like starting to read it, I was telling you guys like, I don't know, like it's good. I don't have anything to complain about, but how can it be that good? And I'm like, I'm starting to get into it, which makes sense. I'm on page like 830 almost, so we are definitely in the meat of it now. This book is 1,300 pages long, as I mentioned, so I don't know when our Sanderland for this one is gonna start. I'm like, is it gonna start at page 1,200? I don't know, and just go insane for the last literal 100 pages. But I can definitely see like tensions are definitely already higher now. Things are starting to crash and burn. We are, I think, like, I don't know, to me it feels like we're getting to the peak of the story soon. We'll continue reading and see what happens. Oh my goodness. Kaladin. What are you doing, Kaladin? What are you doing, Kaladin? I was reading this last night. I was devouring this last night, and I got up to page 1184 and decided to stop with around 120 pages left of this book, because as I was reading, I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many dramatic things happening. We're like clearly at the peak of the Sanderland. And I was reading in bed, and there were definitely parts that were starting to like get really, just dramatic, emotional. I was having some really big reactions to some of these moments that have just happened. But then I realized I would be doing you guys such a disservice if I just finished this book by myself in bed without you. So I decided to stop reading, which was like the hardest thing to do. If you've ever tried to like stop reading a fantasy at the very end of that fantasy while everything is just going to chaos, it's a really hard thing to do, but I did it for you. So I did, in fact, stop reading last night, and we're gonna pick it up now and finish this book. We have, 120 pages remaining. We are in a very high stress situation right now on all ends. I will say there are a lot of tropes, without getting too specific, because like, again, no spoilers, but there are a lot of specific tropes that I did not expect to be in this book, but I'm actually having a lot of fun reading those tropes that are in this book. Do you get what I mean? Probably not, because that is so vague and annoying, but I don't know. Let's finish this book. Oh my god, it is. I was waiting for this moment. I was waiting for this to happen. even begin to unpack a book like this. Like, it is so long. There is so much that happened. There were so many phases of it as well. Like, it felt like one really big cohesive story, but you went through so many ups and downs and like just like different kind of eras in this book. That conclusion was absolute insanity. It got so exciting, and I feel like for the most part this book is so like evenly paced, and then at the end, like, even the POVs start switching so quickly, and it keeps you on this really high level of suspense. So many curveballs that were thrown at the end there too, and I did get very excited when I saw that little Warbreaker Easter egg in there. I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm guessing we explore more of that in the next book. I mean, what can I say? There's no other rating to give this book other than a 5-star rating. Like, it has to be a 5-star rating. I don't even know if it was perfect like every step along the way, but like overall, the overall packaging of this book and my thoughts on it and my experience while reading it is a 5-star. Like, you can't give it under a 5-star. Wow. Okay, I did it. I read the highest rated book on Goodreads. I do agree. I also, I'm gonna give it a 5-star, and that'll boost its rating up a fraction of a little bit more. And so I guess everyone was right about this one. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. I'm on one hand very excited to continue on to the next book, but also scared, because I feel like these first 2 books kind of really concluded this arc of the story, and I think in the next one we are going to expand even further into like a whole other beast, and I'm a little bit intimidated at what's to come, because I feel like the lore and the world are obviously going to expand all the more further. Is that even a sentence? Did that even grammatically make sense? My brain is so like right now. But yeah, I just think the next book is probably going to go somewhere else entirely, and there's gonna be a lot more to learn. I do have Oathbringer on my physical TBR though, so I do have it ready. I don't know when I will get to it, because my filming schedule and everything is going to start getting so intense in November and December, like with the holiday season and with Bookmas looming ahead. But if you have read this series, if you have read this book and Oathbringer, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you thought of the next book. And I mean, I think I'm just gonna leave you guys here. This was a lot of fun reading this gigantic 1,300-page book for a week. I am going to leave you guys here for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what is the highest rated book you have ever read. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!